Kids. Today we're going to talk about a recent movie, and this is kind of a review slash analysis. It's not really a straight up review. It's more of an interpretation of this movie because everybody's got their own conflicting opinions on what it's really about. But anyway, it's Mother exclamation point because it's part of the proper title. You got to say it. And first things first, is directed by Darren Aronofsky. He's the guy who did Requiem for a Dream, The Wrestler, Black Swan. So he's one of those guys where from the get-go he's really keen on like the illusions and sort of iconography of things and making everything metaphorical. And this movie is really no exception. So basically the film, and it doesn't explicitly say it, but you can kind of tell us what he's getting at. It's sort of a weird like reinterpretation of the book of Genesis from the Bible, sort of explaining, how God created the earth. In fact, the original title was Day 6. Which of course is a reference to when God made man, and yeah, we all know that by now, unless you're a heathen. But anyway, the cast, you got Jennifer Lawrence. She plays basically what is an analog for Mother Earth, and Javier Bardem, who sounds really weird and unnatural speaking English. Like every time he talks, it just feels like very uneven and plastic. Like it just doesn't come out as authentic. I don't know why. Maybe it's just me. But he plays like the God figure, and throughout the movie, there's some plot twists. I'm going to spoil everything about the movie, so if you haven't seen it and you don't want to have it spoiled, just click on out, even though you shouldn't. So you have a lot of stuff happening, and there's some bits where people have their own interpretation, and it goes back and forth. So I'm just going to give you my thoughts on it, and then we'll just move right along. Okay, so essentially the premise is, and this is just straight up diegetic, not looking at, metaphors or anything like that. You got Jennifer Lawrence. She's playing like this woman who lives in a giant house out in the middle of nowhere, and Javier Bardem's her husband, and he's like a famous poet, and he has writer's block really bad, and he's trying to finish like his magnum opus, but he can't even get started on it, and he locks himself upstairs, and he has like this giant like gem that he kept from the last time his house burned down, which inspires him, and he can't get inspired to write anything, and you can kind of tell Jennifer Lawrence is kind of mildly depressed because she just spends all day like repainting the walls over and over again, and she has like an addiction to like some like orange like Metamucil stuff that she keeps in the downstairs basement. Like I said, I'm not going to go into the metaphors. I'm just saying that's what happens in the plot. That's what the movie shows us, and she's doing that all the time until one day Javier Bardem brings in Ed Harris, the guy from, I don't know, The Abyss. That's probably the one I remember the most from, but he's also in a lot of other movies. And he's old, and Jennifer Lawrence automatically doesn't like him because he smokes in the house. And at first, Javier tells her that he is like some guy who's renting out a room because he's a doctor. But then later she finds out he's actually like a fan of his work who's about to die, who wants to spend like the week with him. And, J-Lo goes back and, not J-Lo, J-Law goes back and forth. She's upset about the guy being over there, but she accepts it because that's what you do when you're a wife, I guess. You let your husband invite strangers in your house for no apparent reason. So anyway, you got some back and forth there, and there's like a part where Ed Harris starts puking in the bathroom, and Javier Bardem's like, lording over him, and Jennifer Lawrence is like, hey, what's going on there? I don't know what this is. And, he plays it off. And then she goes in the basement behind the washing machine. There's like a secret tunnel, but she doesn't investigate that either because who would really do that in real life? And everything's kind of going back to being normal, except the next day after that, here comes Michelle Pfeiffer, who really needs to lay off the Botox because her face looks about to explode in this movie. She shows up, and apparently that's the wife of Ed Harris. And it's really gross because they kiss with their mouths open, and you can tell it's going to be nasty on both ends. The less said about that, the better. And she's really, really inquiring. She keeps asking Jennifer Lawrence questions about her love life and, why she doesn't have a kid yet. And there's a part where Ed Harris and Michelle Pfeiffer start getting it on, and Jennifer Lawrence walks in on them and tells her to put some clothes on because really they shouldn't. This is nasty. And this keeps going back and forth. There's conflict building between them staying there, and she wants them out, and Javier Bardem wants them to stay. And then their hereto unmentioned sons show up, and they're having a fight over like the will of the estate or something like that. And they have a big kung fu fight in the kitchen, and one of them kills the other, and one's dead, and one just runs out in the wilderness, and Jennifer Lawrence is just freaking out over it. And during the melee, The Rock and Javier Bardem's study gets broken, and he freaks out, so he boards up the entire thing. And there's a big wake where basically they invite all the friends from the funeral, which is apparently held the same day. Once again, not getting the metaphors, this is diegetically what happens, so we can interpret it later. So they have the wake for the son who died, even though the other son's out in the wilderness running around doing stuff, whatever. They come over, and there's like 20 people, and you know, you got this one dude trying to make it with an Asian chick in the master bedroom, and you have people jumping up and down on the sink, which is not, you know, screwed into the wall quite yet. And, you know, they're using the phone, and they're smoking indoors, and they're spilling stuff, and everybody's getting drunk. And Jennifer Lawrence is just kind of headed up to here, and then eventually the plumbing breaks, and she just freaks out and says, "Everybody get out!" And so everybody vamooses, and then she and Javier, they do the wild thing, and she wakes up the next morning, and she just knows she's pregnant, and he starts writing his magnum opus. Like, all of a sudden, like, all the ideas come to him. Then we fast forward 9 months later, and the poem is, or epic poem or book or whatever, is finally published. And then we start seeing a bunch of people flock to his house. It's one person, then 2 people, then 10, then 20, until eventually you have hundreds of people who just basically break into their house. Why? Because they're really, really big fans of the book that Javier Bardem wrote, and eventually they become like a cult, like they start worshiping him, and there's like priests in the basement. And Jennifer Lawrence is starting to have contractions, and she's going around the house, and then like all of a sudden you have like a standoff between like a SWAT team and Antifa for whatever reason. And she's walking around, and she sees guys that are like behind cages, like they're, I don't know, refugees in Syria trying to get out. And eventually she finally does give birth to the baby. Spoilers, I'm telling you if you didn't check out already, about to spoil the hell out of the movie. Eventually she gives birth to the baby. Javier Bardem gets the baby, shows it off to the cult, and they grab the baby, break its neck, and eat it as like a Eucharist. Like it's some sort of like religious rite to eat the baby. And Jennifer Lawrence just freaks out, and when she does, she gets attacked by the mob, and they beat the crap out of her. Like, I mean bad, like they're kicking her in the head and calling her like a whole bunch of really great slurs. Until eventually she gets tired of it. She goes down to the basement, she finds a giant, I guess, like 9,000 gallon drum of kerosene and a Bic lighter, and kaboom. So she incinerates herself and kills like all 500 people in there. And Kristen Wiig shows up as a publicist for some reason, so I guess that could be a metaphor for something we'll talk about a little bit later on. And the house goes boom, but apparently Jennifer Lawrence doesn't die, even though like her skin is like all melted off. Javier Bardem magically comes out of the whole thing completely unscathed. And when he does, he basically tells her everything's okay, I'm the creator, it's great, whatever. And he reaches into her chest and pulls out another diamond, like the diamond that, or gemstone or whatever, that the couple broke upstairs. And then the movie fades to white, and it shows Javier Bardem writing again, and then his wife wakes up, and is a totally different woman, and scene. So anyway, that's the movie in a nutshell. That's Mother, if you want to know what's going on. So obviously, like I said, the Book of Genesis parallels are pretty strong here, because you got Adam and Eve, that's Ed Harris and Michelle Pfeiffer. The 2 brothers killing each other. Obviously, that's Cain and Abel. I think even like maybe calling like Kristen Wiig or Kirsten Wiig, whatever her name is, can be almost kind of like a stand-in for St. Paul, because she's the one who's in charge of spreading the gospel of the Creator, remember? And of course, you know, his poem or book is a stand-in for the Bible. And, well, that's pretty much it. I mean, that's kind of it on the surface. But an alternative interpretation, I think it's probably not the one the director had, but the one to take away from it, is I think it's actually like a metaphor for a woman, basically a white woman in the year 2017, feeling really, really guilty about bringing a new life into the world. Now, I know that's not probably the official interpretation, but that's just what I got from it, because it's about this woman who has like a really, really pointless existence. She just like paints stuff and does painkillers all day. Like, she's totally subservient to her husband, even though he's not really like abusive or domineering. I mean, she just doesn't do anything. She's just a housewife without kids. I mean, she's literally married to the house more than she is her husband. So she just does laundry all day and, you know, paints the walls and has nothing really going on with her life. That's pretty much it. So she wants to have a kid, and she finally gets pregnant because he's going to give her like a default cause of SUI. But then, I think towards the end of the movie, when everything just goes to heck and it becomes like that old horror movie house where reality just totally breaks apart inside the building, she starts worrying about current events. Like she sees like all the riots going on. It's like, oh, do I really want to bring a kid into this? And she sees like the refugees starving. Oh, do I really want to bring him into this? And the fact that the cult leaders end up like devouring the kid is kind of a metaphor for what I think she thinks the world at large is going to do to the kid, right? Now she wants to have a kid so she can have like a default cause of sui, but she's also worried that if she brings a kid into an uncertain world, the world's going to just destroy it and eat it and just chew it up and spit it out. So that's one of my interpretations. It's a woman that's conflicted about being a mother. Like she wants to be a mother to give her existential purpose, but at the same time she's worried that the external world, might, eat the baby. And so she has to blow everything up and start from scratch, and interpret that how you will. Another competing hypothesis, and again, that isn't mine, but it's someone else. Everybody knows Darren Aronofsky is like a huge, tree-hugging hippie. So a lot of people say it's actually about global warming because, Jennifer Lawrence represents Mother Earth, and her burning the house down is about climate change, and there's too many people, and it becomes like almost like this Paul Ehrlichian tone about overpopulation, or I don't know. Some people can read into that. Personally, I don't see it that way. I think my interpretation probably has more merit than that one, the whole eco-conscious thing, but whatever. So there's that. That's my interpretation of what the movie is about, canonically and non-canonically. And to conclude my very quick review, I'm on the fence about it. People either love this movie or they hate it. There seems to be no in between, but me being contrarian, I am. I give it like a C+. It had some cool parts, but here's the thing about the movie. And it's one of those things where, like, you watch a movie through, like, a macrocosm sometimes. We're reviewing it scene by scene and breaking apart and then seeing together if all these broken up scenes make a great whole. It doesn't really do that. It's a movie that works better in parts than as a complete picture. But clearly the problem with this movie is Darren Aronofsky really, really wanted to do, like, a straight horror version of a Louis Buñuel film. Because, Louis Buñuel, he's the guy who did, like, the original surreal cinema. He did Un Chien Andalou. And the film, I think, really obviously inspired this more than anything else, The Exterminating Angel. Which this is kind of the exact opposite of that. That movie was about a bunch of guys at a party who can't get out. And this is about a woman who's trapped in a house, people who keep coming in. So kind of like an inversion of that. Very similar in tone and style and thematics. The problem is, he tries to do it like that, like it's a straight modern horror version of the discreet charm of the bourgeoisie. But it actually comes out more like a really, really light version of something Lars von Trier would do. And in fact, I think in a way you can almost kind of call this a really neutered, unofficial remake of Antichrist, and you'd be pretty close to describing the film accurately. So it's a film where, if you go into it expecting like really great surreal cinema, probably going to be disappointed, but, it's not that bad either. It's not, one of the worst movies ever made. It did get like a really low CineScore. But, yeah, I thought it was alright. I'll give him credit for at least trying something different and, non-linear and trying to have some fun with the narrative and giving people, lots of free range to interpret what the movie's about. But on the whole, just kind of a meh movie. Slightly better than average, but not by that much. So that's it. That's my basic interpretation and overall review of Mother. If you've seen it and have a dissenting view, then feel free to share it with the world.